I was in the 388 Bomb Group, 562nd Squadron, and I flew 13 missions. Bomb Group, 562nd Squadron, and I flew 13 missions. I was a waist gunner, and our pilot name was Richard C. Taylor. Back in 1935, when I was 11 years old, I was sitting on the roof of the chicken house, and I lived adjacent to Wright Field, which is located in Dayton, Ohio. I was watching the planes take off and land, and the first B-17, it turned out to be a B-17, I think it was a 299 or something like that at the time they were experimenting with it, was taking off at Wright Field. And I was watching it, and at that time there was a way for the pilots to lock and unlock the controls. So the pilot had forgotten to unlock the controls, and he took off and got about 200 feet or so in the air, and the plane turned and went down into the ground and killed 3 people that was on board. Well, I didn't realize it at the time when I turned 18 years old that I would be flying in a B-17. And I thought it was the best damned airplane that was ever built. I went in the service in 1942 at Fort Thomas, Kentucky. And I enlisted, but the corporal was filling out my service record, got to a point of assignment, and he said, you get the Army. I said, no. I said, I want the Air Corps. He said, you'll take what you get. I said, Corporal, I'll either take the Air Corps or I'm going home, by God. I said, I'm enlisting. He said, okay. He said, you got the Air Corps. So that was the first argument I ever had in the service. From there, I went to Atlantic City for basic training on the boardwalk. We moved the civilians out of the hotels, and we moved into them. From there, I went to Denver, Colorado, where I took armament school. And after Denver, I went to Detroit, Michigan, where I took turret and sight school. So after that, I was shipped around different places, and I covered most of the United States before I applied for cadets at one time, and I couldn't pass the physical. So they put me on limited service and sent me to Kingman, Arizona, to gunnery school. Well, I was on ground service, and for a year I tried to get off of limited service and finally made it, and I applied for cadets again. And that time I made it. But it was getting close to the end of the war, and they didn't really need pilots, and there was about 50 of us sent to Williams Field in Arizona. And we, after being there washing planes and changing oil and things of that sort, we decided, well, we'll get out of it. So we got out of the cadet program, and they sent me back to Kingman, Arizona again, where I went to gunnery school. So after I got out of gunnery school, we picked up a crew in Tampa, Florida, and went to Gulfport, Mississippi, where we had our transition training. From there, of course, we went to Savannah and picked up a 17 and flew over. We got over there sometime late February, and I flew 13 missions, and only one mission we had a lot of flak, not too many fighters, but the one thing we did have was the keel, and the engines all ran off, and the pilot was able to get 2 engines corrected. We lost one prop, and the other one he was able to feather. And when we got back to Nettishaw, we were probably 2 hours late, and they already had our barracks cleaned out for our uniforms and personal items and so forth. And so we had to find those and get them back. I was a waist gunner, armor of the plane, and my pilot was Richard C. Taylor. We've used 50 caliber machine guns. Of course, I fired one, but most of the turrets, well, all the turrets, as far as that's concerned, had 2 caliber 50s. We did encounter German aircraft, and I fired on some of them, but I never made a claim. I figured there was enough B-17s and enough 50 caliber bullets flying out there that no one really could make a claim and be truthful about it, whether they hit the plane or not. So we had flak, like I said before, we lost 2 engines over keel. We were flying at I believe around 26,000 feet, and we lost altitude down to about 10,000 feet. And the pilot and the co-pilot and the navigator and bombardier were all talking to each other and just trying to decide whether we could get back to England or go to Sweden. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, as forward as I am, I spoke up and I said, I don't give a damn where we go. Let's just get the hell out of here. Well, when we got back to England, we were a little bit late, but the co-pilot gave me a dressing down. But I figured my ass was just as important as theirs was. As far as contact with the enemy planes and so forth is concerned, we saw quite a bit of flak, and I remember seeing or firing on ME-108, also Focke-Wulfs, and there was one time, I don't remember now, I think maybe it was Cologne. We were on a mission at, there was a ME-262 flew through our formation. He was flying so fast, I would say probably doing 3 times the speed that our plane was doing, and felt like we were sitting still.
Did you fire on him?
No. No, like I said, he was going so fast, he was through the formation before I even knew he was there. There was one other time that there was an ME-109 flew over top of us, very, very close, and hit the plane in the waist on our right. And I was flying that day in the right side of the plane, and I actually saw him ram that plane. The B-17 broke in half, and the pilot, I could see him, turned and looked back to see what had happened, and the plane went down, and there was only two guys that I saw came out of it. Neither one of them, or both of them, was in the waist, and neither one of them had a chute. So after that mission, I went to the parachute shop, and I asked them to make me a strap, and they did, and it was about 6 foot long. And I figured if I ever got into that situation, my chute was on the floor where we had to keep it, and my strap was attached to that, and also my harness. And I figured if I wasn't dead, I could pull that chute to me and open it. So that was the one thing that I did.
But after the service?
Oh. After the service, I was discharged, and I went home, and I was an electrician by trade. And one of my first jobs was the remodeling of barracks to make living quarters for German scientists that they were bringing over. And one day I was hooking up an electric range in the kitchen. This German scientist came in. He could speak some English. I could not speak German. And I had my old flight jacket on. It was in the winter time. And he asked me, he said, "You in the Air Corps?" And I said, "Yes, I was." He said, where did you serve?" I said, "8th Air Force in England." He said, "Did you ever go to Cologne?" I said, "Yes." I said, "We blew the hell out of that place a couple of times." He said, "Well, that was my home." And I thought to myself, I didn't say it, but I thought to myself, well, that's tough shit. We didn't ask for the war, you did. And so that was another incident. When I was 18 years old and I entered the service, I had left school, high school, between my junior and senior year. And when I came back from the service, I was an electrician, so I didn't feel like I needed a high school diploma. I had a good job. And I became a journeyman electrician with the IBEW Local 82 in Dayton, Ohio. I worked myself up to being a foreman, a general foreman, and a superintendent for a company. And then I ran for business manager of the union. I was elected business manager for 6 years. But during that time, I still didn't have a high school diploma. But in the year 2000, the Ohio State Legislature passed a bill that anyone who left school to serve in World War II could apply for their high school diploma in the school district that they lived at the time. So I actually graduated from Fairmont High School in Kettering, Ohio in the year of 2002 along with the class. The only difference was they were setting out like the audience, and they had 7 of us guys, where we were 7 of us invited. There was 5 of us there, and we sat up on the stage with the dignitaries, and they really did honor us. There was 2 of the 7 that was unable to attend because they were ill at the time. And I was working part-time at a funeral home with a friend of mine, and Tom Routsong, and he told me, he said, "Al," he said, "as long as it took you to get through high school, I hope to hell you don't plan on going to college." And I told him, I said, "Well," I said, "now that I got a high school diploma, maybe I can get a good paying job." he and I were good friends, and we always joked back and forth. The fact is, the other employees, they always thought we were arguing and fighting. They didn't know why you even kept me around. That's all.